Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. We're doing history of makeup again. So once again, we're going back in time. This time, I don't know if you can tell from my complicated and holy cow difficult hair attempt, that we are going back to ancient Rome. We're going to see pop-ups of the art of that period with beautiful paintings and statues, things like that that I think depict the time period really well. Hopefully you enjoy this series and keep watching. Let me know what you think. As always, you're going to see me looking down at my phone to check facts. Let's jump right in. Now, in ancient Roman times, women of higher means and women of lower means both did makeup. But before they put on their makeup, they did skincare. In some aspects, looks a lot like it does today. They used the fat of sheep's wool, which you would actually know as lanolin, which is still in skincare items today. And it's a very good moisturizer, does a lot of good for that. But what you probably won't see is swan fat, which they use to keep wrinkles at bay. I'm just gonna put on some moisturizer. They also use some not so pleasant things, like, urine, crocodile excrement. I don't know what the deal with crocodile excrement is, but apparently in ancient times they used it for all kinds of things. Ugh. I gotta imagine that skincare back then didn't smell very good. So they had masks. They would use mint masks back then, and they every day went and did bathing. If you were a woman of means, then you had slaves that would help you and applied their makeup for them, because makeup didn't last throughout the day. Just like now, if you get not so great quality makeup, it sort of disappears. I'm going to use some lightener drops in my foundation because, again, the Roman makeup was influenced pretty heavily during ancient times by Cleopatra and what was going on in Egypt. They, of course, didn't take it as heavy as the Egyptians did, because if you were heavily made up, apparently you were a whore. What's new there? So there was one class of women that never wore makeup, and that was the Vestal Virgins. And they supposedly had powers and were a religious order of the time, which was kind of interesting. They sacrificed themselves to one of the goddesses. I'm going to use some super white powder by Ben Nye. This is like the best powder I found for whitening the face. Then they would use different powders. A lot of them had lead in it, and even back then they were starting to become aware that this was a real problem, but did it anyways. You must have that white skin to prove that you were upper class, or apparently life just wasn't worth living. Why not shorten our lives a few years by going about with lead all over our faces? It's funny because men of the time looked down on makeup. If you wore makeup, then you weren't worthy, and looking demure, innocent was a big thing back then. As a matter of fact, they had this really weird belief that if women who had short or no eyelashes were apparently oversexed. That was a reason to wear mascara, which isn't mascara as we know it today. So they would wear or use a mix of sweat from sheep's wool, placenta, excrement, animal urine, sulfur, ground oyster shells, and bile. Yes, let's put that on our face. And because that all smelled so bad, perfume was a huge thing back then. And makeup was super expensive, so much so they tried to outlaw it at one point. So the slaves would beautify their mistresses with cultus, the Latin word encompassing music, perfume, and jewelry. Christian women avoided makeup because, that was unworldly and apparently not embracing what God gave you. The ideal perspective of women's eyes at that time, their eyebrows would almost meet in the center. This is gonna be fun. I'm not good at eyebrows on my best day. And they kind of did a more, from what I'm seeing in a lot of the pictures, they kind of did a more rounded eyebrow, I guess, to make it look more innocent. Well, I don't know how difficult their products were to work with back then, so maybe they did look, you know, terrible. Who knows? The paintings I'm seeing, it wasn't like, wow, I want that makeup. Now for their eyelids and the eyeshadow, they did wear different colors. They had a lot of different colors at the time. Green and blue, because of the Egyptian influence, were popular, but it wasn't by any means the only shades they had. So I'm just gonna take this light color and put it all over my lids because we are going for an innocent type of look. Although I'm not entirely certain that I know what innocent looks like. So I'm going to take this Sea Haze and sort of put that all over my lid. And I'm going to take the Starry Night color and put that in my crease a little bit. They were using oyster shell, so they certainly had access to highlight and contour. As I said before, just because this was ancient times, they did have access to a lot of the things we use still today, color-wise. I'm going to take this white ghostly color and sort of bring that around up here to sort of highlight this area under my brow bone, because I think that gives that more wide open effect that I suspect is what people refer to when they're talking about innocence. They had palettes and stuff, some of them made out of bone and gold palettes, and they think we're expensive. Man, they have no idea. So coal was the main ingredient in eye makeup. They used soot and ash for the eyelids, and they would rim the lid, the eyes. They used a coal stick and they would moisten it in this little thing they had. I'll show you. Now they didn't heavily line their eyelids like they did in ancient Egypt. Like you said, these were a more natural look. But women at that time, if they wore makeup, you know, men thought that they were sneaking out and having an affair. Considering some of the things that we read about that time, I guess shouldn't be that surprising because they very well may have been. There's all sorts of things you can read about things like that. And I'll list some of that above and below. Colored eyeshadow was applied to women to accentuate their eyes. The eyeshadow came from poisonous malachite, and the blue came from ozurite. They didn't really use lipstick in ancient Rome. There's not a lot of mention about it, and if you see in the pictures, their lips weren't really prominent. So I'm just gonna take like this berry color so that it's not like I'm wearing lipstick, but just so that you can, you know, they look like lips and not like, where did they go? A light pink blush. Because once again, we're highlighting that whole innocence thing, trying to look like young and I suppose kind of flushed. At that time, women were supposed to be chaste and virginal and all those things. And they used kohl and stuff because women were supposed to have thick, long lashes. And if you didn't, you were oversexed. But they wanted them to look natural, so not thick. They just wanted them to look longer. I don't suppose they did much more than that because it was supposed to be like a secret. that you were using makeup to look young and beautiful and all those things. And then they would put a ton of perfume on themselves because they smelled funny and brush their teeth with urine. Yeah. There's this funny insult that they had for people who had really white teeth because urine has ammonia in it. If you put ammonia on your teeth, it's going to whiten them and then they're eventually going to fall out. They used red ochre for blush. They also used vermilion and poppy petals. Red ochre was the most expensive blush. Red ochre has been a popular cosmetic since the beginning of time, and one we still use. And jewelry was absolutely a part of the whole look and thing they did back then. My hair does not like to stay curled, as you can tell. As we've been standing here, the curl's like, but the hair and things, they spent hours on that because everybody wore pretty much the same clothes back then. So it was all hair and makeup that made you look like you were from the upper class. And having the pale skin and the really pretty makeup and the really complicated hair was what they used to differentiate between upper and lower class, since everybody pretty... Pliny the Elder wrote, eyelashes fell out from excessive sex, so it was especially for women, important for women to keep their eyelashes long to prove their chastity. What the heck? Can you imagine? White teeth were prized by the Romans, and so false teeth made from bone, ivory, and paste were popular item. Romans would sweeten their breath with baking soda, which is actually probably the least disgusting thing I've seen in here. Cosmetics were especially their overuse, were commonly associated with prostitutes. So the women of the time wanted to look beautiful and virginal, but not overdone. I think that sort of still is a prejudice that exists today. If you're wearing makeup, even today, if you're wearing a lot of makeup, in some places people will say some terrible things. It's unfortunate that that particular view hasn't went away in like 4,000 years. I think it's time for us to get rid of that one. They also used a combination of exotic scents to cover the stench from the makeup because it was pretty gross. Makeup came in tablet or cake form, sold at marketplaces. Wealthy women bought expensive makeup that came in elaborate containers made of gold, wood, bone, or glass. Kohl came in a compartmentalized little tube. Yeah, Lex Olympia tried to outlaw makeup in 189 BCE because it had become so expensive to import them from other countries. But as always, women are gonna wear makeup, and so, you know, that didn't work out for him. Cosmetics were applied in a cosmete by women who were especially praised for their skills. When we talk about the cheaper alternatives of makeup, it was things like berries and things like that women previous to that even had been using, like the mulberry bushes and grounds from different things like that they could then use and sort of put on, but they don't last very long, and that was one of the big problems. I would imagine their climate there, because their climate was so humid, that keeping makeup on was probably a real problem. I don't know about you, but I have the same problem even now with makeup sometimes, where it just doesn't want to stay, and certainly with my hair. As you can see, if you were wealthy, you had somebody who followed you around and fixed your makeup. And I suppose that's still sort of a thing today. If you look at some of our movie stars and stuff, they have makeup artists. I hope you guys enjoyed this history of makeup and looking at these different palettes and the paintings and the way they did their makeup at the time. I enjoy doing these ancient looks. Somebody asked me in a recent one to do Middle Eastern makeup, and so I think we will go there next. Not sure how I'm gonna do henna, but we'll figure it out together. It'll be fun. I'll have another fail. I hope you enjoyed this video and learning about the makeup of ancient Rome and their thoughts and beliefs on makeup and how they used it and the looks that they did with it and these crazy eyebrows that were like a defining point of their makeup at that time. So thank you for watching. Talk to you guys later. Bye!